Hey, everybody. I just wanted to do a quick update and let you know that I'm okay. I was sick for several weeks and now we're moving again. So I haven't been uploading as much, but I'm planning to get back into the swing of things soon. I haven't done an update on the harassment in almost a year. So I feel like I need to do this now. I usually keep a journal of strange things that happen, but the past year's been crazy and I haven't been writing these things down. So I'm going on memory. Last spring, I moved out of my apartment because the neighbor was harassing us. I talked about that last year in the last harassment update. And after we moved out, we were in and out of hotels for several months. So I was moving boxes in and out of the car every time we would move. And at several of the hotels we were in, there were these men that would come out and surround me while I was trying to move my boxes. And they would stand in the middle of the sidewalk to block my path or let their dog urinate on my path, or they would spit on my path. There was a lot of spitting that they were doing during that time, an unusual amount of spitting, always toward me or along the path I was walking or something like that. The spitting went on for maybe a month or so and then it stopped. But almost every time we would move in or out of a hotel, there was harassment of some kind. So sometimes it's hard to tell if it's just a lot of rude people or if it's really harassment. But I noticed that when I would first leave the hotel room in the morning to carry boxes to the car, no one would be there. But then within 5 or 10 minutes, the mobs of men would show up. And there was only one time that a woman was involved. So it was almost always men. And at one place, I was pretty sure it was stalking because the same guy showed up multiple times. First, he showed up when I was in the office. He came up and stood behind me. And then again, the next morning when we were moving out, again, there was no one there, and then 5 minutes later, he came out and kept walking past me multiple times from different directions, and he'd say things as he walked past, even though no one was with him. And as he was doing that, more men came out and were doing it with him, and they were all coming at me from different directions, one of them acting like he was going to run into me. Then another time, we were leaving a different hotel room in the morning, and at the exact moment that I opened my door, a man walked past me and ran his hand down the side of my car from the front to the back of the car. It was really creepy and weird. And then around that same time, I took my car to the shop for some unrelated work. And as we were in the waiting room, I overheard one of the technicians describing the contents of my car to someone else. I had boxes of stuff in my car, and he described the contents of my gym bag. And there was a lady that came in while I was there. I assumed she was a customer, and she said something about windshield wiper fluid. I didn't think anything of it, except that there was something about her that sort of seemed off to me. And then literally that same day, my car ran out of windshield wiper fluid. And when I went to another car shop, they said the windshield fluid tank was cracked. But I had never had a problem with it before. So I was so busy and overwhelmed at that time, I just told myself it was a weird coincidence. But when I think about it now, it's so strange because I just randomly chose that car shop. I had never been there before, and it wasn't close to where I was staying or anything. It was just totally random and disturbing. Then there was a series of parking lot mobbing that went on for several months. And what would happen is I would park in the parking lot of a store. And then when I came out of the store, there would be cars surrounding my car on both sides, and even on one occasion in the front and the back. And in every single one of those cars, a person was either sitting in their car, getting out of their car, or getting into their car at the same exact time I was leaving. And there was a period of weeks and maybe even a few months where this literally happened every single time we went to a store. And even if we would go to different stores throughout the day, it would happen at every single store. And then I started to notice that on many of those occasions, all of those cars were the same color. So at the exact moment I reached my car to leave the store, someone would be arriving or leaving in the cars to my left, my right, in front of me, and even behind me. And on one of the occasions, I noticed all of those cars were black. It was extremely unusual. And at one point, I started filming the license plates, and I said to my son that I was going to film their license plates every time. And then the next store we went to, all of the cars were backed in to their spots, and they didn't have license plates on the front of their cars. So it was clearly harassment. It was really bizarre. And even my 8-year-old son was noticing it, and he was noticing things I didn't even notice. But then that stopped after several weeks or maybe a few months. But before that, There was a really disturbing incident that happened also in a parking lot at a grocery store. I had parked out in the parking lot some distance away from other cars, and there were no cars parked around my car, and there were plenty of empty spaces closer to the store. So we went into the store, and when we were walking out to the car, I noticed a white van parked right next to my car. And at first, I didn't think much of it, but then right when we reached my car, the van pulled away. And then when I went to open my door, I saw that the door was already open. It wasn't wide open, but it was clearly ajar, not closed at all, just open and leaning against the opening. And that was extremely disturbing because I always check to make sure the door is locked. I always lock the doors, close the door, and then I pull the handle again to make sure that the door is fully locked and closed all the way. And it wasn't my son's door. It was the door that I had shut that was on the same side where the white van was parked. And the van had a business logo on the outside for some air conditioning company or something. Anyway, that was extremely disturbing. So I decided to go into the store to ask if they had security footage to see if those people opened my car door. But the store said they didn't have footage, and they gave me a number to call, and the security company said they didn't have cameras set up. But before I went back into the store, I had sat in the car for several minutes after I saw that my car door was opened, and I noticed another white van parked close to my car. It was in a spot that was catty corner to the spot where the other white van was parked. And I looked over there, but I couldn't tell whether there was someone inside because the windows were heavily tinted. But then we went back into the store to talk to security, and we were only in there for less than 5 minutes. And when we came back out, that van had also left. So there were actually 2 white vans. The first one left as soon as we arrived the first time when I saw the door was open, and the second one left when we went back into the store for a second. So even though the door was open, I didn't find anything missing or damaged, but it was extremely disturbing. Then there was another period of weeks where every time we got on the freeway, a white truck would speed up behind us like they were going to hit us, and then they would swerve off to the right at the last second. And this happened so many times I lost count, and it was the exact same maneuver each time. And the trucks looked the same from the front, but some of them were different from the side. They looked like they were brand new Fords or Dodges, and they were all white. And this happened almost every time we drove on the freeway for several weeks or months. And then it just stopped, and it hasn't happened since. But to be fair, we're not living in that same place anymore. But at least one of the times I saw the truck behind us, at least 20 car spaces, maybe more, and it stayed behind us for a period of time. And then it suddenly just decided to speed up, and it flew up behind us and swerved to the right, just like they all do. So that one I noticed was specifically choreographed. It was like the person was waiting behind us for instructions on when to do this maneuver, because it was fairly dangerous what they were doing. And I did see the driver at least once. It was a youngish looking Caucasian guy who had a short haircut, and he sort of looked like he could be military. So like I said, this happened regularly for several weeks, and then it stopped. But I think they may have been trying to sensitize me to white trucks or something, because for a while after that, I would cringe every time I saw a white truck. So most of this stuff that I mentioned would happen for a series of weeks and then stop. But still after that, when we would go somewhere, like to a parking spot or even an aisle in a grocery store, a lot of times it would be completely empty. And then as soon as we got there, a mob of people or cars would show up and surround us. So in the store, for example, a mob would show up and just stand there and have loud conversations for over 5 minutes or something. And then as soon as we would leave, they would leave. And with cars, they would park all around us really close. For example, we would pull in somewhere and it would be totally empty around us. And within 5 or 10 minutes, like 5 cars would pull in and park all around us. And more would keep showing up until we left. And so I think this should go without saying, but I'll say it anyway. We were not doing anything wrong in any of these places. We're not criminals. We're not causing problems. We're not loud. We're not annoying people. There's absolutely no rational explanation for this harassment. It's just pure evil. Also, there was one time when we were at Home Depot where an employee came up to my 8-year-old son and he said he wanted to take my son home with him. And then he nudged my son and said, "You know what I mean?" And it was unbelievably creepy. I don't even want to use his tone of voice because it's so creepy. So some of this stuff is so creepy and so weird that I almost feel like somebody's conducting experiments or something. And I've said this before, but I'll say it again. I do not consent to any experimentation, and I will do whatever I can to mess up their results. But if this isn't experiments, then what the heck is going on? Like I said, these things were happening decades before I had a YouTube channel. I was never involved in anything sinister. I never did anything to anybody. But back when the harassment started, a few people knew things about my dad that they shouldn't have known. So that causes me to think that the stalking and harassment always had more to do with my dad than me. And just recently, I found out that my dad graduated from a military academy in Roswell, New Mexico. For some reason, I never knew that. I was never told that growing up. That also seems sort of strange to me. But it all seems to make sense in light of that, because I've talked in other videos about some of the more paranormal experiences that I've had throughout my life, mostly weird dreams that come true later or are shared by others close to me, but sometimes strange marks on my body and other things that are also described by people who claim to be alien abductees, or what Harvard psychiatrist John Mack calls experiencers. I'm not saying that I fit into that category, but I've experienced some of the same things that they have, and so has my son. And I've listed some of those experiences in previous videos. And in the past year, my son said he woke up one night and saw me standing a short distance away from his bed. And I definitely was not standing there when he said he saw me. So I just thought it was a dream he had and didn't think much of it. But he kept bringing it up again and again, and he kept saying it wasn't a dream, and he was scared. So I finally sat down and talked to him about it, and that's when I asked how tall the person was. And that was when it became clear that the person, quote unquote, was only 3 or 4 feet tall. So it obviously wasn't me. So then I asked more details about what the person looked like, and he wasn't sure why he thought it looked like me. He didn't remember the hair or the clothes. So I'm not sure what that was all about, but there are a lot more experiences like that. For example, once when he was around 3 or 4 years old, we both had similar dreams about creatures outside the window, and both of us counted them in our dream. There were 5. But I didn't say anything to my son about my dream. But he came to me and told me that he had a bad dream about 5 monsters who came into the window at night and tried to hurt mommy, but some hero came and stopped them. And I don't remember his exact words now, but it's in one of my TI videos from several years ago. But then this last summer, I had 2 bizarre experiences in the middle of the day. You may remember that I've seen what appeared to be non-humans on a few occasions. Once at a concert, the singer didn't look human, or at least not like any human I'd seen before, but no one else seemed to notice. And then the other time in my childhood, some creatures went through the woods next to our house, and 3 or 4 of us saw them, but they were floating above the ground, and their heads were shaped like the heads on the Egyptian hieroglyphs. Those were the only 2 times I remember seeing what looked like a non-human, not including the guy with the giant white head who sat next to me in a cafe because I think that was a disease. But last summer, I saw 2 separate people, females, who looked otherwise human, except their faces looked like nothing I have ever seen in my life. It wasn't a disease or a deformity. Their faces literally looked like a cross between a human and a very specific type of dog. The dog is called a pug. And the only reason I discovered this connection is because At the time, I was reading the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and in that book, they describe these people who have faces like dogs. So that was literally the only reason I was able to put a label on it. I had to search dog photos on Google for a while before I found a photo of a pug. And that is the closest thing that I can use to describe the way their faces looked. So there were two of them, both seemed female, but in different places on different days. The first time, my son and I went into a pizza place to pick up a pizza, and there was a lady sitting at a table, and she said something that I've heard the gang stalkers say before. So I looked over there, and her face was so unusual. I kept glancing back just to be sure I was seeing it. She acted completely human, and everything else about her was human, but her face was literally so unusual, unlike anything I have ever seen before. And like I said, it wasn't a deformity or any disease that I'm aware of. And then later on a different day, I was at a water park with my son, and it was late in the day and there weren't very many people around. And I saw this lady just standing there staring at us. And at first, I thought she was waiting for someone, but then I noticed that she had the same face of the lady in the pizza place, only I don't think it was the same lady, just that same unusual face. Anyway, those two women are only the third and fourth times that I remember ever seeing someone who literally did not look human. And I don't think it was a coincidence because, like I said, I was studying the ancient Egyptian book at that time that says the watchers have faces like dogs. So it almost seems like I was shown that because I would be able to identify it. And I was not on any drugs or alcohol or medication of any kind. I was completely sober and awake, and it was in the middle of the day. There's a series of videos on my channel covering the Book of the Dead if you want to see what it says about that. But anyway, now, after all the Bible research I've been doing, I feel like all of these experiences, the paranormal stuff, along with the organized stalking and harassment, I feel like they're connected to ancient prophecies about non-humans on our planet persecuting people. And, if you want, you can check out my other videos for more information on that if you haven't already. Anyway, that's all I can remember off the top of my head. I'm sure there's a bunch of things that I just forgot about because I wasn't writing it down. But I just wanted to share that with you and give an update for those who are also going through this harassment and also for anyone who's investigating it. I'll continue to give updates as often as I can. If you're going through some of this stuff, just know that you are not alone. And I will talk to you later.